Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Washington Street Collaborative Work Group meeting on Friday, October 3rd at 11 a.m. Let's see who is online. Is everyone in person? Everyone is in person, so fantastic. But we are opening the meeting today in open session, and I will start with public comment. Somebody here. Do we have any public comments? Any public comment online? No public comment online. Okay, do we have minutes to approve? No, we do not have minutes to approve. So we are going to jump right in today to the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project and start with a schedule update. I believe Laura and Lynn are going to take it away. Thank you so much.
Great. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. So yeah, we'll just look at the schedule, recap what we learned last week from the coastal modeling outcomes. And then we're going to turn it over to Todd and the PAR team to talk about some of their progress and takeaways. And then Scape has some sketches for further discussion. And then we will kind of look at the two spatial alternatives, the dune swoop and the beach overlook side by side, and take a vote if you are ready. Okay, so just a recap of where we are. You saw this last week, so we don't need to spend time here. We're at the beginning of schematic design, really looking to take the feedback from today and begin to create that technical document set over the coming weeks before the end of the year, with cost analysis and operations and maintenance guidance happening in the new year. Just a refresher, I think Kirk gave a very helpful presentation last week of their findings. Just in pink here, some of the key takeaways that to inform the design. I will highlight. So there's really a higher occurrence of sediment overwash, meaning sand at the Francis Street Beach washing onto Washington Street in the condition today than in what they're seeing in their model for the future condition with the design intervention. So that's good. That means we're not going to be worried about additional maintenance. In fact, it might be somewhat less of Washington Street itself. They found in their analysis that there's no internal additional dune core that they see needed. However, they think a landscape wall at the right of way outside of the resource area would be recommended just to keep some of that sand from washing onto Washington Street as the dune migrates naturally. They also highlighted the fact that adjacent connections are really important for the success of the project, and particularly that means coordination with the adjacent property owner to the north. And I think we are already, or the land bank of the town have already had discussions there that are in progress. So that's a good sign. They also, I don't know that it's listed here, but they also noted that there wasn't a significant difference between the dune swoop and the coastal overlook schemes in terms of its performance. So it's really more of a decision based on other factors. This is some of the takeaways from that discussion last week, shown in a little bit more detail in a cross section. So we heard from the Woods Hole Group team that in terms of the form of this dune, that a 3-to-1 maximum slope, so a little bit steeper slope towards Washington Street would be okay, that we would ramp up to a dune crest of 8, and that as we slope back down to the beach side, a more gradual slope, like a 10-to-1 proportion would be preferred, and that we could nourish the beach a little bit to get up to elevation 5. So that's a factor that would both allow the beach to be accessible and usable for a longer period of time, and also helps a little bit with the accessible boardwalk grading. We're moving to, and Todd's team's going to talk more about this, to a pile supported boardwalk, and that's really in order to allow the coastal dune to migrate beneath it. we're going to talk a little bit more. I think Todd's team will talk about the clearance requirements, which typically would be a 2-foot clearance, but would require handrails. So we're thinking about possibly not requesting a waiver to prevent that requirement. And then just a note that we've talked about this a lot in the past, but that target elevation of 8 for the dune crest would give us benefit for the flood impacts of an annual storm, which we see in the MCFRM could happen as soon as 2070. But it would benefit us in more significant storms in the nearer term. So that's pretty good. And then you see that landscape wall. So that's a synthesis of the takeaways that we're sort of using as a basis of design. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd and the PAR team to talk about the things they've been working on. And I will stop sharing my screen if I can see the button. And then we'll come back and we can talk about some of the sketches that Scape has been doing. Give me 1 second. Where is my share screen? Oh, I see it. Okay. There we go. All right, Todd, all yours.
Put the request in. Okay, so we sent over one option just so that we could focus on our our alternatives and just evaluating some of the concerns or some of the ideas that we have to make sure we're accounting for. And so we use the angular boardwalk that was in the original concepts with the grading. And as Laura mentioned, some of the key elements of that is the grade around the boardwalk, because we are now an elevated pile supported structure that has to allow the dune to move underneath it. For building code requirements, we need to maintain at least less than 30 inches of a drop off from the boardwalk to the beach or to the dune. If you are at 30 inches or greater, we need a handrail, and I know that's not desirable. So we're recommending to grade at 18 inches, so that if you have a foot of movement of the dune, you at least have some time to go back and regrade a little bit, so that we always maintain less than 30 inches. In Woods Hole's recommendations, which we agree with completely, specifically on the south side, the grading was dropping off, and there is a existing sheet pile wall along here. To close this off, there is most likely going to need to be a slightly longer sheet pile wall or an extension of that on the property to tie into the neighbor, to allow this dune to be at elevation and not be higher than the adjacent grade on the other side. So there's definitely a proposed wall parallel to this along the beach, which is just to hold back the sand and the grade to the neighbor's property. One of the things that we did find out throughout the last week and a half or so was this existing shed actually has a restroom in it. So that'll have to be incorporated into some of the waterfront structures and the supplies there that stays as a restroom and a water supply. So there's going to need to be some work on this interaction here.
And Todd, that's connected to the sewer, right?
Yes, connected to the sewer. On the north side, with the abutting property that is interested in doing some sort of dune or some sort of protection, until we know that there was a discussion of a high velocity area between this property and the dune that was proposed, so that the high velocity that would potentially scour and do an end scour on the dune will have to be addressed. One option, based on no movement from the abutter or any connection with the abutter, would be to use a geotube along the edge, so that any of the scour would be protecting the main dune and only damage a small amount of this area and be reworked until a connection is made further with the abutter. And I think Laura's team has some sketches of some of that extra grading that would be needed. The other thing that we've been talking through and still are going to be some of the challenges is this existing asphalt. It appears to be like a walkway, but really it's more of a turning radius extension of the roadway that was installed several years ago, because the trucks were having challenges with that. From a public safety standpoint, there is really no pedestrian access on either side of Washington Street. We'll call it Washington Street Extension as you go to the beginning of the boardwalk. If this is being the beginning portion, the sidewalk stops here, continues. We could have a crosswalk. And one thing that we have a couple concerns on is this is the gray resource area. This is the dune delineation that was provided. It stops at the split rail, but in reality, it looks like it goes up to the edge of pavement. So that's an area that has to be further defined. But if we were to pave that area of the split rail to the pavement, that might be considered, it's going to be considered the dune potentially in paving that, which may be a challenge, but we're going to look at that as public safety versus the dune and work on those risk managements of the permits. One
And
thing that
Todd, we have
did,
a couple sketches to share that we can,
yes,
we'll all have to align on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then what we did discover was the property adjacent to, on the other side of Washington Street, the actual fence currently encroaches onto the public right of way approximately, with some a little bit more defined survey work might be needed in this area for the actual property line, but there is a potential that the walkway could be sidewalk could be installed on this side, similar to further down on Washington Street. So those are some public safety issues that we're evaluating, and I know Laura, you're going to be illustrating that a little bit better than we are. Those are the high levels of the structure. One of the things that we, with this not having a wall in the dune in down the middle of the core, to be able to get the dune to be functional at 8 feet and maintaining a 9-foot boardwalk elevation, the dune has to be both on the seaward side, underneath the boardwalk in an area, and on the landward side to tie that in so that there's a full barrier. One of the other challenges is the grades that are needed on the beach side and tying in ADA accessibility into this beach. This, luckily, I'll call it luckily, that this ADA ramp is on the beach rather than in the dune. So putting the structure, burying it into the beach is going to be a lot easier permitting wise than in the dune. That extension, we want to make sure we go far enough buried under the beach nourishment so that if any storm scour does occur, you don't have a drop off for safety purposes and ADA requirements. It should be noted that we are filling below high tide line and possibly below mean high water. Just adds a permitting aspect to it depending on what we need to do, but we're definitely going below high tide line. So that'll be, according to this plan, until we get into it, there might be a way to do that, but the slopes that Woods Whole Group recommends requires us to extend that beach out in further. To illustrate what we're talking about in the cross section, the minimum, when their deck elevation is at 9, minimum dune elevation on either side has to be 7.5, so that we don't have to have a rail, which would be another 3 feet of an obstruction of view and everything else. So we would be up around 12 and a half feet. Again, landscape wall, pedestrian bicycle path, walkway. Then the areas where the dune is going through the structure is actually at elevation 8, so it'll be right at the bottom. So it'll almost be like the boardwalk is floating on the sand. It'll seem like it's not even supported because it'll be right up to the bottom of the structure. So those are the recommendations to get that through. As we stated before, the 2-foot separation is from the dune. The challenge with that permitting aspect of it is it exists at 4.5. So our approach to this is going to be that we're accelerating the accretion of the dune, man-made, and we're allowing that to move through. So we're technically 4.5 feet above the existing dune, and we're making it a higher dune. We're making an 8-foot dune. So we're just naturally, we're accelerating the accretion, and it's still allowed to move. But that's going to be a permitting challenge that we have. Adrian, did you want to highlight any of the other permitting stuff that we've been matrixing? and going through right now?
Sure, I can just talk through, the permitting thresholds that we're looking at right now for the project. Most of them are pretty standard for the coastal work. We're expecting Army Corps of Engineers Section 10404 permit, the DEP 401 water quality certification, DEP waterways, and also an order of conditions through the Wetlands Protection Act for the project. There is an interest from the Division of Marine Fisheries because of shellfish habitat on the beach, but it is restricted, so that is somewhat helpful. There's no Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program priority habitat on the site, and of course, this is velocity zone on the beach, and we will be filling inside of it, so that will be a MIPA threshold. And there is EJ for MIPA in the vicinity of the project, so we're anticipating the expanded environmental notification form and minimum a single environmental impact report as part of the filing. Generally speaking, the design is not going to influence permitting in terms of thresholds. Everything that we're qualifying for, we're going to qualify for regardless of which shape or what the final structure looks like. It's just going to be a matter of how much we need to fill in the resource area and how much we really need to move around the dune to be able to accommodate those two designs. But that will all be negotiated with the finer points with the coastal manual as we move through. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. But I'm looking forward to seeing the design come together.
One other note is we are beyond historic high water line, so there will be the Chapter 91 license required. That was another one. So that's where we're at. Laura, if you want to continue, or is there any questions?
Any
that we want to
questions
talk about?
before we jump in? Just we've sort of begun to interpret the technical understanding that Todd and Adrian are providing into some sketches, but technical questions they can field probably better than we can.
Can I just ask a quick question? This is Rachel.
Yeah.
I am wondering if you could just run through that list of permitting agencies that we need permits from really quickly. Again, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So federal permitting will be the Army Corps of Engineers. At the Commonwealth, that will be DEP Waterways, which is a Chapter 91 license, and the DEP Water Quality Certification Program. And then locally, you will administer the Wetlands Protection Act through the Nantucket Conservation Commission. The Division of Marine Fisheries will need to be consulted through the Wetlands Protection Act process because of the shellfish habitat that's on site, and but not the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program because we don't have any priority habitat on the beach. And then coastal zone management will be in consult or agency consult through MIPA because of the expansion of fill and velocity zones.
And I would add HDC to that list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Kirk, you have your hand up.
And zoning.
Yeah. What's up, Kirk?
Yeah, thanks. So I apologize in advance, kind of just getting a chance to look at this in a little bit more detail, and I appreciate Todd and Adrian walking us through it. Just a couple things. If we could tweak this a little bit to keep it above mean high water, which I think would be really good from a lot of different perspectives, I'm willing to lay this dune out a little bit more. Todd and Adrian, I want to talk to you about that. But I think it's pretty close to being able to keep it above that. And I don't think there's any performance negatives by doing that. So
I'm going to tell Kirk, this is the grading from the original concepts. We didn't change anything yet.
We've been
we haven't
sketching
tweaked
some
it,
grading,
so-
but I think our three firms need to have a charrette early next week and work through the grading.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So I think we're going to do everything we can to try to keep that above, make a very high performing beach dune system, but keeping the new placement above mean high water, I think would be ideal.
Yeah, it'll still be below high tide line, which will still impact Army.
Yeah, there's no way we're going to be able to keep
it. Right.
But and then that grading in general we can talk about just from a overall stability standpoint. The way some of the contours go now, I think we just got to smooth out a little bit. I know why they're like that, but and then the final thing I'd say is we should talk through options for the not including the geotubes. I think, one, the neighbor, we can probably get them on board, but I think two, there might be some other options that might make permitting a little bit easier. And I'd like to try to keep those out of there as well. So just some general comments and thoughts.
Other questions from the working group?
I don't see any on our end, Laura.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
I think probably when I get into some of how we're beginning to interpret this and caveating that we're still kind of in sketch mode, but probably some other things will come up that both Kirk and Todd and Adrian will want to weigh in on. Okay, so just kind of a site context drawing here. And we, I know last time we talked about that sidewalk that had been built more recently at the crossing here at Meter Street. So we kind of have an updated, aerial photo that talks about some of these key constraints. We see that coastal dune that is delineated all the way up to the edge of pavement. One other thing of note is that the Washington Street extension does narrow to 17 feet in this area between the sidewalk and this sort of like bump out. I know that's not really a two-way street, but something to think about as we're trying to tackle this question about no sidewalk. And then you can also see the right of way on the opposite side of the street, which again sits behind that fence line. So we started to sketch just in a diagram form through a couple of possibilities of how we might address pedestrian circulation. I think we have the concern, we want to provide a ADA accessible pathway here for access onto the beach. If you're approaching from the Washington Street extension, that's fairly straightforward. If you're approaching from the other part of Washington Street, it gets a little tricky. So one possibility, again, is that we create a new crosswalk here, and that there's some kind of shared street condition where this is more of like what we would sometimes call a WUNRF, like a shared, bike car street that happens to be able to connect people in this segment of road where we don't have sidewalk on either side. I don't think there's a lot of precedent for that in Nantucket that we've seen. Maybe others have ideas. The other possibility would be this, what I think Todd was alluding to, where we need to make an argument that pedestrian safety requires a 5-foot sidewalk, even if it is sort of encroaching on the edge of that delineated dune. Another possibility is looking at aligning a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street, and that could mean either taking a closer look at this right of way or even looking at narrowing the lanes in order to capture a 5-foot sidewalk that would allow then safe crossing to the boardwalk entry. I don't think any of them is perfect. Sort of a non-ideal condition, but given what we learned, about the exact location of the delineation of the dune, and then also the discussion we had last time with Nat's insight about this being kind of a truck turning radius accommodation, we're getting, we're a little pinched on pedestrian access here. I'll pause there if anybody from either from the design team, engineering team, or the working group want to comment.
I think the last one makes more sense. It's taken things further away from the intersection, and and people have hopefully slowed down by then. So I think that one I think seems the easiest and makes the most sense. And all of this makes me wonder, are we making a path? I think we need a path eventually that continues all the way down, all the way down the front along there. But I wonder, I think the bigger need we have right now is sort of keeping the water from getting onto the street. I don't think we need to make this a beach, like a well-attended beach. This is, I think our first goal was was water and showing it. So that's my 2 cents.
Laura,
Okay. Yeah.
I consider her kind of running the show here.
Yeah, Laura, I think now.
So I just want to add to what Matt said. I actually
Yeah.
agree with what Matt just said, which is a good sign of things if that's happening. So you know, on Nantucket. So has anyone spoken to the owners of the old Christmas property there? They were very opposed to a zoning change a few years ago. They're still in RC, which is absolutely unbelievable. But I believe they are still in RC zoning, which is like unbelievable.
Are you talking about this property here, Nat?
So if we have right of way, have anyone spoken to them about that? Just asking.
She came to our public meeting last year.
Did she?
She
Were
was concerned, she wanted roses on the dune. I remember. She was concerned about her view. We didn't, I haven't been privy to any conversation about the right of way, but others might.
Okay, because that's right. I mean, these little right of way issues, I mean, we go back to the yacht club, everybody was mad. It was like, there was no collaboration whatsoever for anything on Washington Street Extension 20 years ago when that was going on. Now all of a sudden, we're all in love, and everybody has their functions down there, and we pretend that we never had these problems. But that's one of the reasons why none of this is set up right. And there was no turn put in, that could have all happened. But I think the best thing to do, Laura, is not get overly focused on every little pedestrian issue, because there's going to be multiple ways that people get to this boardwalk. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like a crowd of people. It's going to be incremental, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to make light of it. I'm just saying this is how things are here. And we don't want to get too bogged down in all that stuff, because there's no real solution to it.
My concern, Nat, is only that if we're providing an ADA accessible boardwalk,
Yep.
we're not providing an ADA accessible way to get there with the existing condition. And that's my concern, just from a design sort of best
Permitting
practice and liability and everything. Yeah.
That little thing for the trucks is not anywhere near needed today, because the turn is fixed. Once that turn got fixed, it changed everything.
Okay. That helps.
The little sidewalk thing was done. It's not really a sidewalk. That was done to get the cabs of the trucks moved straight before they turned left for oncoming traffic. Now with that turn done, it's still used a little bit, but really big trucks, but it isn't anything like it was before.
I have a question for Mike, because I feel like I saw some sort of plan where there was like that area was extended all the way down Washington Street for bikes, is that?
Yeah, that same dimension, that apron that's there,
Yeah.
that's used for,
So,
that's, the idea was to repurpose that and run a bike lane all the way down Washington Street. You know, it was long-term because there's properties in the way and buildings in the way, but that's the long-term strategy.
so it should be kept as is for that longer.
Yeah, I would hate to lose that and
Yeah.
try to get it back.
That was done on Friday after.
I don't think
I
we
have-
have to decide on this today, but I do think it's a consideration we're going to have to solve, or at least have a satisfactory, resolution for in the design process.
Bikes
Two.
are that's used as a pull-off now. If you're biking from, inbound from sales,
From
you
the
get-
bike path.
you get there, you hit the stop sign, you stop, you get going, and then the cars all come up and knock you right into the houses. So you pull over to the side there until someone is polite enough to let you get into the lane. And they'll try to pass you as you're driving down that road. They'll try to gun and go around you, and it's nuts, but that is really important right now, just for that.
It's a little rest spot.
Yeah.
Safe.
Little refuge,
What
yeah.
do they call it? Refuge.
Yeah,
There you go.
it is. It's a refuge for bikes. If you start, you've got the right away.
Come up
and
here, pull over.
you need somewhere to go. So,
Okay, that's helpful. That makes
good.
sense, because this is such a busy
I-
corner for trucks.
So I think the
I have
question
a-
is, do we try to extend that pavement on the beach side a little bit down Washington Street extension and see if
Yes,
the regulatory agencies will allow that?
that's a good idea.
Or do we? do
That's this version. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
home
can
has a fence and garden and everything.
can I ask a question? Because it kind of goes on to the topic of the idea is this is phase one of many, and this is going to be a longer boardwalk, right?
Mhm.
And I hate to bring this up because I wasn't in the original concept questions, but
Okay.
is there a reason that the ADA ramp has to occur on the south end and not at the crosswalk?
So we've been talking about this, Todd.
Okay.
The reason for the long-term plan, let me actually just go,
Yeah.
maybe I could go to it. The reason for the long-term plan is if you're a bike coming from the Washington Street extension out to all the bike lanes, you come up here, or you,
Yeah.
or even as a pedestrian, you know, this is the accessible kind of path,
Makes
then
sense.
it can continue all the way down.
Way down. Okay. And
However,
that's what,
in the short term, the major or a major flow is coming this way. And in both scenarios right now, we're showing stairs there. I think, and I was just going to say this, when we get together and talk about grading next week, if we don't have to be 2 feet above the dune with the deck, we may be able to get a ramp on both sides. I think we need to study it from a design perspective. It's going to change the geometry. But, and I don't know, Lynn, you've been looking at this really carefully from a technical grading standpoint. I don't know if you feel like there's a barrier there, but if we may, is particularly in the dune swoop version, I think we may be able to get a ramp from both sides. Do you have thoughts just having looked at it a lot this week, Lynn?
It may be
And-
possible, but a little challenging because we are gaining, if we look at both schemes, the high point is closer towards town, the high point of that 9 to gain that access. So it would be a shorter route from,
We have to get up
exactly,
faster,
exactly.
which is
But
why
if-
we were showing the stair on that side and the ramp on the other, because we have the less resource area to navigate on the other side.
Yeah, we might want to integrate like a switchback, but I think we can study it. I will say it might be a little bit challenging given the existing grades.
But it's something we've been talking about a lot too,
Mhm.
Todd. As somebody in the working group at some point said, can we just flip it?
okay.
I think the reason not to flip it is then if you're approaching for the long-term framework, if you're approaching from Washington Street, you don't want to, or the extension, you don't want to go up a stair.
Yep.
But
Understood.
if
I
we could do
agree.
both,
Yeah.
better. Okay, I think that talking about the pedestrian movement is going to be a part of talking about these refinements to the two alternatives. So maybe we kind of weave that into the discussion. So just a reminder, these are the two sketches we had shown at the public meeting. We asked people, you know, how favorable do you feel about each of them? We didn't ask them to vote for your favorite, but just how favorable. And the dune swoop was slightly higher, although it wasn't a huge disparity. So that's just back of your mind. So what we started to do, and these are admittedly, you know, sketches that need finessing, but we started to look at, given the new information that we have since we did the concept alternatives, how might we adapt these two alternatives of the dune swoop and the overlook. So we know, as Todd's spoken about, we're going to be moving to a pile supported boardwalk versus what we had shown before, which is totally on grade. We're looking at the dune to be able to migrate independently with a beach berm and a more gradual slope towards the water. And that landscape wall at the edge of Washington Street in order to backstop any sand overwash. And then also, you know, if the road were to be elevated in the future, that sort of creates a delineation to the resource area that could be engaged in a raised road. So this is kind of a first pass looking at that, and what we're starting to, again, we'll work with the broader team on the grading, but creating a dune that comes up to elevation 8. That elevation 8 would extend over towards the neighboring property. I think based on what we just saw from Todd's sketch, this 8 probably wants to pull over to the other side a little bit as well. So we'll finesse that. But it allows you to get up on a ADA accessible boardwalk with no handrails up to a high point of 9, and then back down accessibly to 5 on the beach. with a stair here, again, because we have to kind of get up and over that high point sooner. Can put a pin in that for further study, and then a stair back down. We could talk about whether we need both of these. It could just be that it's a ramp down and you have to kind of come back around to the kayak area. But this is just an initial look at how we might refine that given the new constraints. We also, as Todd mentioned, need to find a location for this kayak rental and restroom. And so it's right now about, back here. So we would be looking at pushing that out farther on the beach if we're going to accommodate it. Did I miss anything, Lynn, on this one?
No, I think actually to your ramp comment earlier, Laura, it does look like the run from the left side here might be able to meet a high point of 9 if we wanted to investigate that. I think I had a different vision. Yeah.
So we could potentially look at a ramp from this direction as well as this direction. We can study that.
Right.
So
And
that's, yeah, go ahead.
I think in this scenario too, we're really trying to work away from mean high water, but you can see how when you exit the ramp there and enter the beach berm, there is like a 3-to-1 situation where it's accessible. Then all of a sudden it's like a little bit more challenging. So we would need to sort of work with the team to think about how to give that a little bit more space above mean high water.
So that's one sketch, and this is sort of how it works in sections. So you have that upper, the main part of the boardwalk that sits above the dune crest, and then this is just the pile supported boardwalk as you ramp back down to the beach. So you're seeing both of those. You're seeing the landscape wall. I think this is similar to what we looked at before, but the dune itself is about 50 feet at the crest. Then we also looked at refining the beach overlook with the same constraints. And so you're seeing, again, a universally accessible ramp with no handrails, 5% slope comes up, gets to our elevation of 9. And then this one gives a more generous seated overlook that we could place some benches. It's more of a pull off from, the main path of travel. And again, we have the ramp that comes back down to the beach that is also accessible with no handrails. And then we, again, in this scenario, have stairs here and here. I think with this configuration, it would be very difficult to provide a ramp on this side. So that's a factor. And that's the cross section, not so different from the other.
Laura, I see that Joe has his hands
sorry,
up.
I'm not seeing. Yeah, Joe, go for it.
No, it's fine. It's a question that applies to both. So I'm glad that you made it through. Just given what we've learned about, I'd always thought that shack was just a shack. And given that there's some infrastructure in there, I'm wondering, Todd and team, if you guys have any comments about the feasibility from a permitting standpoint of moving that further landward and further seaward, excuse me.
Yeah, that's one that I would say that we want to keep it, especially that it's a bathroom. We probably want to keep it closer to the roadway if we can. So that's going to be the challenge.
I don't see with the grading how we do that.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Then the question becomes, is it necessary?
Do we need, that's maybe a Leah question. I know you had some, and we're going to have a touch point with them, right, Leah, coming up?
That has not come up in this conversation. I'm kind of shocked.
We didn't know. It's not in the survey. We didn't know there was sanitary.
It was a shed. It was a shed.
I don't know anything about it. I can't believe I don't know about this. Yeah. I think it's sort of.
For the rental.
It must be for the rental, people.
But to get it hooked up to sewer and actually have a real bathroom, like that happened before Christ. It had to be done. Back in the day, John, do you remember this? I don't know anything about it. Because this beach used to be Francis Street Beach. I mean, it was a beach that you people would go to.
Yeah.
Like,
but the slope of the sewer lateral coming from that bathroom may be limited.
I don't know. I know you're thinking of all that. No.
Further away from the street, it may not work.
Separate conversation. Totally agree with you. Okay, he's talking about gravity, Laura.
I understand. Yeah.
But
Ken,
this is where we get into the fancy porta potties like we have for
Yeah, composting. Or can they go to the Salt Marsh Center and use that toilet?
Jetties and stuff.
Or
you
a
know.
pressure system, I mean, it can be done, but it's just.
That's insanity. I mean, it has to be something better than that. So you have public restroom, you have the Harbor Masters, building is a public restroom, right? But maybe there could be a future thing someday with Salt Marsh future, I don't know, something. But
It's been down there 40 years.
I can't believe it, man.
Cause
I don't go to the beach, man.
For years. I used to put up, I don't do it anymore, we used to put up, talk to my
I
daughter.
can't
Stands for
believe
them.
that's a bathroom.
And they
But
were-
I've rented a kayak there and it's not advertised as as a restroom, even for customers.
There.
Maybe it's for the attendant, but
They hang out down there,
Yeah.
doing their thing, so they gotta have a place somewhere, so. Yikes, oh my God.
so
Is
I
there
don't
anywhere
know.
to keep
That's a
it?
question. Go
Is
ahead.
there anywhere to keep it and move the entrance over here, either one way or the other?
The reason why that's challenging, let me go back one. See this red line, Matt, is the
Yeah.
resource area, and we're trying to get that slope up. I mean, we could look at it, but it's right in the footprint of where we can ramp up outside of the resource area, outside of the dune.
For the boardwalk at the entrance to be wider and then that restroom can be.
Oh, sits on the
basically
boardwalk.
Sits on top of the boardwalk.
This is
And while we're
sloping.
looking at details, what is the history of that bump out, right where your hand is there? And how is that reflected on the town's right of way?
This bump out,
Way narrowed there, or I can't imagine the.
On the right of your hand.
No,
The
right.
17-foot wide bump out, Laura.
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
have no idea.
South
We
of
were
that-
wondering about that too.
That bumps out into the roadway. Does the town's right of way do the same thing?
The
can't-
right of way line is this dash white.
Up till there? Okay, so that's an encroachment into the town right of way?
Yes.
But that's not the same issue as you have a private property on, so it's not. Yeah.
Well, who did it?
Who knows, these
Well,
variable
probably
width,
that private property.
these
owner.
variable width roads on Nantucket, you know how it is.
Oh, I know, but can the area be used? I'm just saying that's like where
Who
everything was
owns, is
coming
that town
together.
land or land bank property right there?
Town.
That's what I thought, so, I mean, all in favor, say aye, kind of thing there, right? Don't be worried about that. I mean, I'm just concerned with, it would be good if we could leave that restroom that I never knew about where it is, without touching it. Be honest, somehow.
Todd, you had that on your plan. We don't have it on our base. Do you want to share? Just show the
Yeah.
location of it.
Limits access to that sidewalk / boardwalk or whatever, that entrance.
So you have to walk down into your restroom.
Yeah, this is the shed. And this is where our boardwalk started. I mean, is it?
I don't think you shared yet.
Oh, it didn't go, share, already,
There you go.
there we go.
Thanks.
So this is the shed right here. Is it possible? Here, the dune is here. You could always, is it possible to turn it and put it in here? Dune go around it, the boardwalk go around it.
Maybe.
Because we're altering how the kayak, we basically cut off access for the kayak straight. They gotta
go up the ramp.
They
Yeah.
gotta go up the ramp and everything else, so having it here, I don't think really affects anything. You have the boardwalk go around it and this be whatever it is.
It would be better if it was actually a public amenity, like if people could use the restroom for the beach,
Right.
it makes more sense to me.
Yeah. As far as where this is and, could it go on top of, making it a dune and you're putting it on top of that,
I don't think that works.
I don't think that
They
works.
have, I assume they have a lease from the town.
Yes.
Yes,
Do we have the delineation of that lease line?
Find it.
there was a little stuff about that a couple of years ago, about how far the other way they were kind of migrating a little bit. But this here never has come up in any meeting. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Are we gonna have to provide some to stair for them to get to their kayak for their leased area?
Is it town facility or the?
Dude, you're the
or
town.
the shed?
I don't know.
Where the people put the bathroom in the shed?
This is one of those things, like the one at the end of Mattocket where it got taken out. It's just there, like, I don't know, this is unbelievable, I'm gonna get out there and look at this, just see what's up. I mean, it has to be, you know, some kind of solution, Laura, for this.
Yeah,
Have to work on, this is a Nantucket problem, not yours. You know?
yeah. I mean, we could study some different locations, but I think you're gonna have to dig into what the agreement is.
Yeah. Can I ask you a separate question from the last meeting that adds to this? Which one of these is best? I know I asked this before, there's a lot more people here today. What's the best for the future addition? You know, adding on to this, which sketch?
Yeah, I'm gonna retake the share.
You got it.
Thanks.
And both of them, Laura, are adaptable. I think that's one of the questions there, and they have been graded to accommodate at the high point of 9, another boardwalk connection to the waterfront. So you can see where 9 is. We would want to maintain that ramp that slopes down accessibly just to maintain access to the beach. Exactly. It could ride that high point. Exactly.
This one, that might be more sinuous in terms of especially if you are a cyclist, like that would allow you. And we know that probably the commuter type bikes are going to be on the street in the long-term plan. So it's, not like you need the speediest way, but, for a bike, a more sinuous connection is better. But here, you could still create a connection that goes this way. It's just going to be a little bit more angular with the geometry. Both of them are designed with the requirement that they need to be adaptable to a future connection. It would just take a different form.
Okay.
So I think maybe we go through this and then I would ask, Kirk, Todd, everybody chime in on anything that we're missing here in terms of the side-by-side comparison. So we heard slight preference for the dune swoop from the community, but it wasn't a huge difference. Obviously, this one is the more curvilinear form that pulls from the language of the waterfront and the creeks and some of the more sinuous boardwalks we see around Nantucket. This one has a little bit less of a big, boardwalk overlook area. Benches could be more integrated along the pathways. I think something worth noting is that this form creates a little bit more usable beach, whereas this one sort of has like pockets. So that's worth noting. There's a little bit more dune buffer between the boardwalk in the road in this scheme. So the boardwalk is pushed out a little further. This is a little bigger. Here it's a little thinner. Obviously, these are things we could finesse. They're both adaptable to the future, as we just described. And something Todd and the team brought up last time we were all together was that just building a boardwalk in curves is going to be an order of magnitude more expensive just because of construction. So the cost is also a consideration. We don't have the exact numbers to compare them, but just sort of from experience, the angular will be a little bit simpler to build. And I think, and Kirk, correct me if I'm wrong, they both perform equally well from a coastal modeling perspective. Yeah.
I have a question about kind of the coastal modeling and maintenance. So during large storm events, does one perform better than the other? Like, I'm just thinking for the angular one, would that kind of would it cause sand, just debris to kind of get like stuck in that crevice, and then the waves hitting the structure itself, would that cause more damage than the dune swoop? your opinion, Kirk and Joe?
Yeah, so we looked a little bit at that type of stuff. So the overall performance of the sand movement isn't going to be that different between either of the two cases. The thing related to potential damage of the boardwalk itself is anywhere where there's, you know, those beach access points has kind of the, you know, where you get down at grade out of the resource areas. Those are where you're going to see scour and potential damage to the boardwalk during really big storm events versus
Down here, Kirk, like at the,
that one. And on the swoop, there's those portions there. So when you get down at grade off of piles, that's where you're going to see the impact. So again, depending what your view on this is, you know, that's more or less, I kind of, it has two entry points in either one. I do think what we need to work on a little bit now is just the grading of the dune and beach relationship to that, to help minimize that as best we can.
yeah. And I do think there's still a question of, do we need the second stair? Like, I think we need the accessible route. This would be more direct, particularly for access to the kayak shed if it's still down here. But if we want to minimize footprint, one lever we have would be to remove the stair and just have a ramp, so it's a little bit less footprint.
Yeah, my only thought on that would be is that because you're only 18 inches off, you're gonna get people jumping off and just walking down.
Yeah, and then you just wear through the dune, and that's
through the
not good.
vegetation and everything else. So
That's a good point. Yeah,
potential challenge.
that's very true.
And it might be, instead of doing it at the overlook area, you do it as the ramp's coming up just to get down to just to get up and over to the.
Oh, like here.
Yeah, something to there,
Oh,
go
that's
up and
interesting.
over
Yeah.
with a stair. It's hard to say.
What about something temporary that could be pulled up in the off season?
That's possible.
Well, if you look at the picture, if you look at it now, the kayaks they're gonna put the kayaks up against the boardwalk. They're gonna walk the kayaks, you know, down the dune.
Yeah.
You know, that if you look at it now, it's kind of clear on the right-hand side of the property. When you look at overhead, where they've,
I'll go back to
the kayaks have been going. If you find, see how it's clear on the right? Where the kayaks are, where that is and where they are, that's all been, you know, walked and stored, and, you know, it's gonna end up like that somehow, just because it's gonna get used. So we have to sort of figure out, how do you put that in a way that's legal? And if we're changing that, we either have to get rid of the kayaks, if we're not allowed to do that, or we have to accommodate it somehow, I would think.
Somehow the town of Nantucket is calling me. I think everyone I know is in the room over there, so I will not pick it up. Sorry.
Or we use the slope up going up to the new crest, as that's where the kayak storage is, up high out of the beach.
Just so you know, we have met with Ryan Pitch, who has the licensed kayak rental. So we have met with him and discussed all this. You know, at that time, the understanding was that this was something that we were going to try and do our best to accommodate, because it is a service that's been in existence for a really long time and people seem to like it. And so thinking how to keep it was a priority. So just to remind everyone, that's where we started.
Yeah, and he liked the idea of there's a stair or whatever it may be.
The stair down here.
Yeah.
I would love to understand, I think we are going to meet with them again, but is it preferable for them to have their operation down here more beachward? And of course, there's permitting questions with that. Or would it be better to be back closer to the road?
I believe when we talked to them, because they store the kayaks down at the beach.
On the beach,
So
yeah.
to accommodate an area on the beach for the kayaks to be stored. And I don't think he really minded obviously people are gonna have to walk on the boardwalk to get down there, so.
Right. He seemed quite amenable, but yes, I think closer to the water is easier, because then you just drag the kayaks into the water for use.
would be kind of cool if we could integrate kayak storage into the design of the boardwalk itself as part of that clearance.
Yeah, maybe where the more beach is, and that might be an
Like
option.
down here
Yeah.
somewhere or something.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, outside
Or
of the
here,
dune.
outside of
Yeah,
the,
the dune. And I think that's another consideration. I don't know, I didn't get a chance to scale these sketches yet. Is there an area of coverage difference between the two within the dune resource area? It looked visually, and it could be deceiving.
I don't think we did a
It
takeoff yet,
looks,
but
if you compare the two, it looks like the dune swoop is less
Oops.
impactive.
sorry. Gotta get my eraser. There we go.
It looks from an initial view, because the beach overlook looks like there's more impact of structure in the dune.
I would say yes.
Yeah. And that's a benefit to if you're picking one or the other, what's in the dune resource.
Because this is all,
Right.
you know, this is all hardscape.
So I think that would be, it's not that it's a factor, but it shows that if we did alternatives, we pick the one that's got the less impact. Kirk?
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. I think there's some, now that we're a little bit further along, right? I think there's some tweaks that we can do to these design layouts.
For sure.
Right. That like with the access ways, I'm not like the accessible access on the beach overlook. I'm not really in love with that in a lot of different ways. Just goes
Say more
out,
about that.
yeah, it goes out too far into the beach and the water. It's like a lot of length. You know, I think there's other locations for where that would make more sense. And then, you know, I think we can work in things like the kayaks and all that stuff in a different layout. I think the decision needs to where the rubber hits the road for me on these two is, do you want, you know, a curved boardwalk or more angular? Because that's where the cost comes in. I know when I had to get a deck built in my backyard, it was a big deal that I was making like a hexagon and a circle versus like a square. Right? They're like, I don't know. Right?
Honorary landscape architect, Kirk.
Yeah. So like that, I think
fancy.
I think that's where the decision really comes in. And then I think the tweaks can make it work.
We'll refine both or either, whichever we want to move ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, the curvilinear versus angular, I think, is really where the decision lies. Unless someone disagrees with me, like, and then you can work it in, and I think it'll be nice in both cases. So
you talked about cost differential. What is that delta? A big one or a little one?
So the interesting part is when I started getting into the original angular beach overlook one, I actually, when I got into the framing of it, I actually started retracting the cost differential because of all the different angles that were involved in all the different framing. It actually was just as complicated as some of the curvature in the dune swoop. But this refined layout has taken some of those challenges out, but they're still not clean.
Yeah.
Right. It's not, they're angles that add features to it. The curvature is really is a challenge with the framing, and if there's any treatment, and this is one of the things that I think as a design team we need to talk about in these situations. When you have a 18-inch drop off on either side, you typically want some sort of kick rail on each side, and that's going to be your challenge with the curvature of how tight that radius is, and how do we cut that, and how do we make it look still like a curve and not a bunch of tangents, right? And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So there is going to be the cost increase. I think the pile number for either one's going to be relatively the same. I think, honestly, I think the dune swoop might have a little bit less pile count just because of the width and the angles, but not much. It's really the workmanship of the curvature more so than the angular at this point.
And we did talk early on, we talked early on about a kick rail, kind of like what you see at Easy Street.
Yes.
Which is just, I don't know if I pull this over here, if you guys are going to see it. Anyway, it's just simple, but yeah, of course, the easy street example is linear, angular. So,
Yeah.
Let me see if I can open this up. Yeah, don't wait on me.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it is if you have accessibility, you having ADA accessibility, having that drop off, you want something to be able to stop a rolling
Yeah,
chair, or
especially with no
something to-
rail, no
Yes.
guardrail. Yeah.
Yes.
I think some of the images, Laura, had that in their sketch rendering, that little kick rail.
Oh yeah. Do you have those handy?
They're in the deck.
Oh.
You can go to the plan.
Oh, here. This little rail. Is this what you mean, Liv?
Right, and then also the other one, just like a little.
More curved. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we feel? There's trade-offs. Do you want to discuss it, vote? How do you guys want to proceed?
So you want recommendations now, today?
We need to start documenting, just per our schematic design schedule, we need to start the technical documentation of the preferred direction.
So today, the hope is that you vote which one you want to move forward with, the 30% design.
Can we have a chat about that?
Yeah, let's have a chat.
Matthew, so at the beginning, yes, it's nice to look at this, the roundness and the fluffiness, all that, but after this conversation today, outside of the bathroom, God, I can't believe it.
That's a public bathroom. I found the concession, got the bid.
Who built it?
I don't know, but it's
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they basically have a 40-foot rental. They have to keep their stuff within the 40-foot rental. They have to operate a public bathroom whenever they're there. And they have,
Very responsible.
yep, and they have to supply, they have to clean it and supply stuff. It's like a little bit, and I said it to you guys, it's through 2027 is their lease. And they're supposed to not be putting it on the rest of, they're supposed to stay within their 40 feet. They can't do motorized, they can only do.
That's before
No
this
motorized.
project. That's
Well,
all unrelated. I mean,
Yeah, but that's the exact existing concession.
Yeah.
When they bid, that's the details of bidding on. So.
Okay, so
2027. So could we accommodate them in a different location with the renewal? This thing isn't getting built before
all of
2027.
that, Laura, now we're getting back onto the bathroom again. So the problem with that, Laura, you have to just kind of trust this. It works the where it is by like no plan. It just works. Like it's not, especially with the way that new road comes in from Washington Street, from Union Street.
Yeah.
One way people can kind of zip in there with their bike or zip in there, whatever, without making as much traffic confusion.
And it's a safe place. If you
It's
put it
safe,
somewhere else, you
yeah.
have to cross.
Yeah.
Right now, they can go along the harbor without crossing the steamship or anything else.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Anywhere out there. You don't want to go towards town with this. That's insanity. So anyway, back to the angular. I think the angular, we should go with that because of the simplicity of building it. And I don't think that the fluffiness of the other one outweighs the mechanics of the angular, in my opinion. And also we have HDC to think about. I don't know where we are with them. But that's another piece of this.
I mean, I think the geometry of Easy Street is a nice precedent for the angular, and that might help with HDC.
Oh, good.
I'm trying, yeah.
You do lose Little Beach.
You do, yeah.
So, although it's interesting, the original pictures that you didn't show aerial but from a side, it looked like there was more beach, in the overall, or in the angular one. But this way, it's very different. So I've flipped back and forth, and I'm kind of, with the overlook too. For other reasons. So you lose a couple feet of beach, but I think it has, that's where I'm leaning now. Tomorrow I may change my mind.
Well, and it sounds like, Kirk, you have an idea about how to better align this ramp down to the beach in this alternative, which might help us reclaim some of that. So we can continue to sketch on this as a team if that's the direction and try to.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just looking at some options also. I think there's kind of mirroring the two a little bit in the angular. In the dune.
Yeah. Kirk had to jump, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think it works
Sorry,
out.
I can't see everybody at once, so I don't know
Yeah.
who's there.
I came wanting the overlook, but got talked into the dune swoop today, so.
Oh, no.
And I think it's almost whichever one can fit the kayak building near the road, so that we can keep that there. I almost, the only other place to move a kayak is down in front of Sales. But a lot of people already parked down there and put their boats in there.
That's my boat.
And that's,
It's free.
that's not like walking into the water like here.
No, I know.
It's not,
Well, you
can, but
I dragged my canoe down by Sales into the water.
Closer to getting, to the creeks if you want to go kayaking in there. But
Yeah.
So nobody online can see this right now, but this is at 63 Matticat Road. And we chose, and I can.
do you want to share your screen, Rachel?
I can.
How did you get away without a kick? How did you get away without something so you wouldn't roll off the edge?
Well, it's a very good question, right? So, let me just make sure I'm sharing this. We have kicks in some locations. This is low enough
Yeah.
that it doesn't require that. But, so we have these two. Hang on, this is kind of.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So but these are examples of curves. This though is actually a really good example because you can see how hard it is to actually get that curve, right? Because this was incredibly challenging to build. You can see that it's like, there's a little bit of like, with the turns,
Yeah.
huge structure. This is
Right,
light
and this is
compared to this.
pretty light, but this is actually at Matticat Road, so it gives you a little bit of an example. I just wanted to show everyone that, over just wetlands. So,
Yeah, Rachel, you all have built so many boardwalks of different forms. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective of usability, constructability, all that.
we rarely build these curved boardwalks because they're hard. So this is really kind of one of the only spaces that we have one that I can think of. I'm sure there's others, but.
We get one that's curved like this too.
Wouldn't it? Oh, in Sacagawea Pond?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's same builder.
Yeah.
Actually, but these are far less frequent, just for simplicity's sake for us.
We are proposing the curve one at East Creek.
Yes. Right?
That's
But I
true.
know
That's true.
So
that could get revised, Todd, frankly. I can see that in our land of cost cutting,
Yep.
coming back as not curved. But I just know this is a far less frequent thing that we do.
Yep.
So, but it is something we do. It's just not as easy. Which is why Easy Street is what it is.
That was my next, I was thinking about that.
Mhm.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's great.
Definitely should have a couple trash barrels, but it is a great thing down there. Unbelievable.
Lots of people use it. It gives people kind of nooks to sit in. It works really well.
Yeah.
When you are dealing with those big timbers, it is harder to negotiate curves with those big timbers, for sure. I mean, that type of boardwalk just gets exponentially more difficult when you're dealing with something that's chunky. So feasibility wise, I mean, the angular one, I know aesthetics are maybe different, but feasibility, the angular boardwalk is easier. And I think over the long run, like all the way across
Oh, wow.
Washington Street, you'd end up with
Suddenly
more
it comes
cost.
Easy Street. World,
Yep.
2020.
You can see the kick rails, you see, I think there's some, we did look at this, like there's a vocabulary here that would carry over to Francis Street Beach if this is deemed, you know, preferred and easier. I think they could both be beautiful.
They
So
could both be beautiful. They could be beautiful.
They will be beautiful.
They will be beautiful, sorry, excuse me. Does anyone want to make a motion to take a vote?
Ready for that, I mean,
Maybe you're not ready, we
I mean,
can,
what do you think? I am, but
Go with the easy one. Yeah.
I just feel that the other part of this too, the future stuff, like Easy Street has a future, but it's more towards the steamship, Old Skipper direction than one part of it. The rest of it is not like gonna just be a little piece over here, all that. This is different. This is the sort of the train station that is gonna only have a little bit of rail, and we're gonna add some more later. We don't know when that's gonna be. And I think it makes more sense to have the most, you know, the angular model.
Here's the question, which one is preferred by the neighbors and which will fit, which will tie into them better in the long term? Is there a difference?
If I, yeah, the swoop, there's less of an angle to tie in. You don't have to make that hard left turn.
right.
Yeah.
Do we know their preference from all the meetings and things? Which is more likely to help work with them?
I'm blanking on his name, but I spoke to that gentleman quite a bit at the public meeting. He didn't indicate a preference, just a desire to tie in. But I know you all have had conversations since then. One other thing though, just looking at the, you know, I think if we do want to look at making a ramp from this crosswalk, can you see my pointer?
Yes.
It's going to be easier in the dune swoop. This will be more challenging with this geometry, unless we just really rethink it.
I have a preference for the dune swoop. I like first the aesthetics of it. I like the fact that there's more beach available through that. And I've walked pretty much every boardwalk that is on the island, on Land Bank and other properties. And there's something about the curvature of, you know, walking on the boardwalk and so on. So that's my clear preferences to the alternative one, the dune swoop.
Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, this is, you know, tomato and tomato a little bit, you know what I mean? It is.
Well, see, I'm gonna argue with myself now. Alternative one, it's easier to tie in to the north.
Mhm.
Or beach. It's easier to get the ramp, as you just pointed out, so.
It's interesting, you shouldn't say that.
And I haven't got an answer of the true cost differential. I mean, is it $1 or is it $10?
We haven't put pencil to paper on it yet.
You know,
We have a cost estimate once we create, you know, develop the SD set. Our scope includes an estimate of that set. I understand it would be useful now.
see, Alan, now you're push me back.
Well, you don't.
It's also hard to say because, you know, it might be $1 on this one, but then by the time you extend it all the way down to Commercial Street, it's gonna be exponential.
Yeah.
Yeah, the swoop, I look at it and think the right-hand side of this is gonna be taken up by the commercial entity that's there. They're gonna use that entry. They can't park a car there, but they're gonna have the building somewhere. We're gonna fit it in. They're gonna have all their stuff over there. I think the swoop is better because you don't have stairs. That's gonna be accessible too. So both sides of the swoop, both sides are accessible for anybody to enter it, whereas it isn't.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at future connection, the swoop that ramp might not fit because you're dropping down midway curvature. You're gonna have to come back up on the connection. So we gotta think about that a little bit if we're seeing.
Do you mean this ramp might not fit Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you turn that into a ramp somewhere, you have to make sure that your connection is still up at the elevation you want your boardwalk up, or you're gonna be coming down and coming back up, going to the future.
Is there a world where we do this and this ramp goes bye-bye and you ramp down somewhere, the next land bank property or something?
That's possible.
It's not as clear a transition. Yeah. I hear
And
what
I
you're
think
saying, though. If you're not up to 9 until over here
So,
somewhere,
your connection to the north is a little challenging. And the other thing I would recommend is that whatever we do for a connection for the future, we get it outside the dune now as this project and either have it as a little dead end overlook so that when we go back for the next phase, it's outside of the dune and we're not touching the dune again. The existing dune delineation.
so you give
future
some
dune.
kind of a little stub
Yeah,
that you would,
something that you would have as a little outlook, like on the angular, you could make that happen a little bit so that you're outside the existing dune delineation. Granted, there will be a new dune delineation depending on when this future extension occurs, because we're creating a dune. So it's catch-22. But if we show it as the future connection as part of this application, that helps us when we go to the next one.
So Laura, what is the timeline right now? Because like these are getting into the meat and potato stuff now. So for like,
we're supposed to
Give-
deliver
give it a
schematic
recommend-
design by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think also, if you remember, engineering onboarding was pushed out, so that got pushed.
This,
Let's have
yeah,
to-
wait, how
The
long?
the starting of it got pushed.
yeah, it exactly, because we got Todd's team on board, which is great, but took a little while. So, yeah, there was a pause period in this gray bar.
Are you gonna?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I'm switching back and forth now. So that last thing that Todd just did was important.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Yeah. Thinking of Route 93 in the 70s and they had the little ramp and it was stuck there, it's there for 50 years. Finally got it done.
The bridge to nowhere, yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is now, but
Can I make a comment that may steer it a little bit? If we can go back to the comparison between the two. Those two alternatives aren't that different, except for that piece that goes to the north. On
Yeah.
the dune swoop, you've got this curvilinear swoop that's headed to the north. The beach overlook, it's flipped going to the south.
This ramp here,
Otherwise, they're not that far apart.
yeah, it's just
One's
a
little
form thing.
more angular, one's a little more curved, but maybe if we just agree on that ramp that goes to the north on either one, and then fine tune the angles or the curves. I mean,
that's good. In other words, come back with two more fine-tuned sketches.
Or just
like
one.
you said.
or one with just
That's a good idea.
some changes in the visuals. The thing I'm looking at is this part is the same.
Yeah, you're talking about
It's just
this,
curves or corners.
this versus
This is the only difference.
Am I making the right mark for what you're pointing at?
And if we can agree on that in both of them, we're not that far apart.
So fine-tune the slope is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that connection to the north is a better one for down the line.
Yeah.
Than it flipping, going back to the south. And then if we
Yeah, we don't
can
need
go
to go
with
to the
that
south.
as a given,
That's true.
we're just
Right.
like fine tuning the angles and the corners. It's not that different.
Laura, what if you were to come off of that point with your ramp to the north? In
This-
the overlook, no, on the beach overlook, if you were to use that triangular point in the middle of the overlook and take your ramp to the north, similar to almost go a little bit, yeah, that way, or come straight north and then angle off.
You
like
can probably
in-
grab a pen, and this is Zoom, so Do you see a pen?
I'm looking.
Maybe over to the left. It's on the left on mine anyway.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, draw it.
Yeah, almost
So you got a real design charrette today, guys.
coming off and
Figuring it
doing
out.
angular this way.
Yeah.
Where you're starting your ramp off of this,
Yeah, maybe.
similar to the curvature, but gives you that ability. And it might take away too much from the overlook aspects of it because you're putting a ramp right down in front of you. But I
Yeah.
don't know if that has any kind of basically makes it look almost identical to his
Yeah, it's the
point.
same
It just
movement.
it's
Yeah,
just it's just
different shape.
angles versus
Swoops.
curves. Yep,
Yeah.
swoops. So that was it. That was my only thought.
No, that's a good idea. Worth a study.
I think it's a good suggestion and then figure out how to fit the tire thing in and keep the bathroom as where it is if we can, as close as it can be. So we don't have to change any of that. As soon as they touch that and then bring it up to
It's gonna
code,
be a big mess.
it'll be a
man.
mess. Yeah.
Exactly.
As soon as they touch it, maybe they can
Anything
raise
around
it.
here is a problem when
No, I
they
know.
touch something.
And then they'll start talking about some
Yeah.
state code and whatever, and it'll be $2 million.
Yeah.
We built a shed that was $2.4 million.
Totally
With no
different.
utilities in it.
Silly.
2.3 million for with no utilities.
The other thing, like flipping that ramp to the north does, I think it adds some more usable beach area.
It does, yeah, because you lose a lot to dune here.
It does, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's
So-
make a
So what am
decision.
I hearing?
And do you want curves or do you want angles?
Curves.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hear Alan wants to make a motion for curves. Is there a second? Second by John. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow, unanimous.
Yes, I mean, it,
With something going north.
it's the north part, the beach part, and the addition, future, and anything they can do to fix that bathroom.
Okay, so Alan said, you said curves,
Yeah.
right?
Curves.
So
That's a
that would be
friendly amendment.
alternative one.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No, and that is making
With
a friendly
revisions.
amendment, saying he wants to keep the bathroom.
Yeah, it's anything they could do to jiggle some of this stuff. It's just got to. I mean,
What do you wanna jiggle?
jiggling a way to get that legally,
The
the
bathroom?
ramp and leaving the bathroom.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
So I just want to point out, I think maybe you already understand this, but I think either way, we have to have the dune tie in over here, right? So
Yes.
even if the building remains here and we have some way that they get up and over, they're not going to go up and over this way.
They're okay with that.
They're okay with that.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other public restrooms anywhere in this area other than walking into sales, I guess. I don't know. They don't have bathrooms.
No
there.
one knows.
I know. That's the part, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, just leave it.
This is great.
You bring it up, it'll turn into a problem.
But they have to be there because it's locked, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not
so
public. I
looks
should
like
have said
we're
that.
moving forward with alternative one, dune swoop.
Okay.
With,
We're going to look at a ramp here, see if it's feasible.
yes,
We're going to look at what's feasible for this shack.
yes,
And storage, so he has a place to put his kayaks.
Storage, maybe
Yeah.
here, maybe here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your
think-
face, Todd. Are you worried about this? Are you okay?
No, I'm good.
You think this is good? Okay.
I think you have to put in evaluating the future connection to the north.
Yeah.
And where
That's
that
what-
occurs. Yeah.
Within this, yeah. I think
Yeah.
we can finesse it, but yeah.
I have one, and I hate to do this, but I have one question. The stub that goes off to the right, not the north, the one to the south. Do we want it there? Like, I'm figuring that's gonna end up being, we don't want them climbing up and down the dune all day. So that, if that's closer to the business, into where they're gonna be doing their business and moving their stuff, they'll use it. So we wanna move that closer to what the 40-foot leases?
So you're going to have to get up and over the dune,
Yeah.
right? So we're only at elevation 6 here. So you'd have to go up a couple steps to 8 and then back down. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, just when you do it, like, can it, then maybe it doesn't have to be right next to it, but should it go over, to the right 10 feet, or so, I don't know, like, I'm just, when you're looking at it, think about them dragging kayaks and, and being 18 years old and at the beach all day,
Yeah.
They're gonna go
Yeah.
the distance.
I think what Matt is alluding to, Laura.
Yeah.
The beach might become more popular than it is now.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully.
Now, I mean, there's a handful of people laying on top of the seaweed. So they almost fell over. I'm like, well, it's like a bed because we, like a seaweed. So just tell the truth. So I think it will be more attractive. There will be more people, but I don't. So I think that's what he's kind of thinking. It will be busier.
I'm talking about the employees there dragging stuff down,
Oh,
pulling
yeah.
up all back up.
Yep.
Make sure, like,
It's
it's
easier for them.
when I was a kid, I pulled
You know, be like-
chairs and umbrellas down the jetties. And,
Very seldom is there a storm in the summer where they'd have to really batten down the hatches down there. I mean, it could, it's not a problem.
Yeah, we'll find an area for
Yeah.
the kayak storage and also the public kayak storage as well.
Is there public kayaks?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
didn't
so
know
many
that.
boats on there.
yeah.
No, I know there's boats, but kayaks on
Yeah.
the beach, people just leave them.
Up closer to the road.
Really?
Yeah,
Are they stored on the town or the land bank side?
they're on the
Oh.
town side.
Well, that either.
Do we need to keep providing that?
Very attractive.
That's a question that we'll have to ask Sheila, the harbor master.
Okay.
But we did hear that in the public meetings that the public would still like storage there.
Okay, well, that's absolutely. You don't want to take that away, then another controversy.
Alrighty, so we're approaching 12:30.
yeah.
The next steps are. Laura, do you want to talk about next steps?
Yeah, can I just reiterate what I heard? So we're advancing the dune swoop geometry. We're testing whether this northern spur can be a ramp. We are testing whether the kayak and restroom facility can stay in its existing location. And we are studying the way this stair is most efficiently accessing the kayak rental 40 feet.
Yes.
Did I get it all? And then we're also taking a closer look at how it can connect to the future
Yes.
extension. Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Same page. So next steps, we don't have, I think, what is our next meeting, Leah? I think
Meeting is October 24th.
Okay. So we're going to be doing some studies. Maybe we can meet with staff between now and then. I know we have next week as an off week. We're going to be moving into some of the technical documentation, but I think it'll be important to come back next time to talk through these refinements that we just discussed.
Okay.
Todd, from your team's side, what are you thinking for the next touch point?
Yeah, I think we're going to be wrapping up our permitting with this decision, start moving through some of those not high level, kind of the memo and what we're presenting, starting to get those into draft form and moving along. So I think we'll be able to make some good headway now with this direction.
The other piece that Scape is going to come back to with Hazen is to look at, given what they found last time, and we'll coordinate with you, Leah, and Vince and the staff, beginning to develop the rain garden geometry based on what we talked about previously and the approach to the parking lot and get that into the model. I don't know whether we'll have that on the 27th, but we're going to be working towards that to understand how we can absorb rainwater we're seeing falling on the street.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And then, so going forward, we'll still be meeting the 2nd and 4th Fridays of the month. I know before, like, a lot of them were canceled and stuff, but we're gonna try to stick to that schedule. All right, any other questions, comments? Not someone can. Okay, all in favor? Great. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks. This was super productive.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
everybody.
Thanks all.
We'll see you soon.